Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Amirul Amin bin Abdul Wahab. I want to explain my lab report, deflection of a simply supported beam. The objective of experiment is to determine the deflection of a simply supported beam at a desired location. Okay, before doing the experiment, we must have a support frame, a steel beam, a set of weight with load hanger, vernier caliper, and ruler. The theory of the experiment is the deformation of a beam is usually expressed in terms of its deflection from its original unloaded position. The deflection is measured from the original natural surface of the beam to the natural surface of the deformed beam. The configuration assumed by the deformed natural surface is known as the elastic curve of the beam. A structure can carry a load in condition with the ability of the beam is more than the load. When a beam is applied with a load, it will cause a deflection. Deflection is defined as a change in a vertical distance from its origin to the point on the deflection curve. In most practical cases, it is necessary that a beam should be not deflecting from its original position by more than certain amount. For the procedure, first we must refer for experimental setup. Next, depth and width of a beam are measured using vernier caliper. 3. The beam at the support frame are placed and the length of beam span are measured. Next, the load hanger at two desired locations are placed and the distance of the load from the left support L1 and L2 are measured. 5. Dial gauge are placed on the position where the deflection is to be measured. Make sure the dial gauge is 0 before place the load. Number 6, suitable load are placed on the load hanger and the reading from the dial gauge are noted. Next, step 6, for another 5 sets of reading are repeat. Number 8, note the value of load and deflection in table 1. And the last, report are prepared according to the guidelines. All calculations are made. For the calculation and analysis, we must note one by one. After that, we must search the reaction from the beam. I'm doing my calculation using the Macaulay equation. First equation is moment equation, then slope equation, after that deflection equation. The calculation deflection using equation 3 and why we got negative 1.18. The comparison experimental and theoretical deflection is 0.36 and the error is 30.5%. All the data we got, we must put at table 1. Okay, for the discussion, why the deflection of beam is important in structural analysis. Beam deflection means the state of deformation of a beam from its original shape under the work of a force or load or weight. One of the most important applications of beam deflection is to obtain equation with which we can determine the accurate value from beam deflection in many practical cases. Deflection are also used in the analysis of statically indeterminate beam. beam deflection due. The bending are determined from deformation taking place along a span. This is based on the hypothesis that during bending, plane section through a beam remains plane. For now, it will be assumed that bending takes place only about one of the principal axes of the cross section. A beam may be strong enough to resist safely the bending moment and shear force, and yet be unsuitable because its deflection under the calculated safe load is excessive. The effect of span on deflection is very important, and compare the theoretical and experimental of deflection, and comment on the accuracy of the experiment by referring to percentage of error. Okay, my deflection from theoretical calculation are negative 1.18 mm, while the experimental result are 0.82 mm. Percentage of error are 30.5%. Results are acceptable because the result still low percentage error compared with experimental result that may cause due to slightly error during the measurement. My recommendation: percentage of error from experimental for deflection are 30.5%. Error may cause by common source of error. I recommend apparatus put at the flat surface and avoid to use fan in room when the experiment was run, and apparatus need to calibrate. The conclusion: in experiment, the theoretical calculation are negative 1.18 mm, while the experimental result are 0.82 mm. Percentage of error are 30.5%. The experiment are acceptable. Error may caused by common source of error include instrumental, environmental, procedure, and human. In this experiment, the measurements are most important to get the accurate reading. Thank you.